It's Rashad, one half of Panther Nation podcast, and I had to call up a friend, Quincy Carrier. What's good, bro? Representing the Browns, week 1. It's time to talk some football. Let's get it, man.
About time, man. We've been waiting for this game forever. I mean, the trade went down right before training camp, and then this has been circled on everybody's calendar since then. I mean, it's already week 1. Don't take much to get people excited for it.
Right.
And then, all this stuff added on top makes it even more interesting.
Yes, it's a lot happening. And we'll kind of take it step by step. We'll try to stay away from the whole Deshaun situation just because it's all football. It's football going on right now. We don't need to talk about guys not playing. I know it's a big deal over there, but we'll shy away from that just for the sake of time. But we gotta talk Baker, man. We gotta talk Baker. Being that he came from the Cleveland Browns, this is the quote unquote revenge game. I mean, what's your thoughts on it, man? First of all, what are your feelings towards Baker right now, or as he was as a Brown? Like, how did you feel about him?
My thing about Baker was always this. People would always say because he's not consistently a great quarterback, he's Andy Dalton, right? Or something like that. That's like the common critique of him. He's Andy Dalton, he's Kirk Cousins. He's not that. What Baker is a little bit more inconsistent, right? Like, he will give you games where he looks like a franchise quarterback, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. He had like 2 5-touchdown games versus Cincinnati, clutch throws. He can do it every once in a while. I mean, even more than every once in a while. He will do it like a good 4 or 5 times a season, right? The problem with Baker is the consistency, right? And that's why he ended up being out in Cleveland. I know there's like a bunch of stories out there on why Baker was out and like the front office didn't like him or stuff like that. The real reason was 2019, they had Super Bowl expectations based on how good this offense would be because they traded for Odell Beckham. Offense stunt. So he failed expectations that one time, and he played bad that year, right? And then 2021 comes around, Super Bowl expectations. Why doesn't the team even come close to fulfilling them? Not even go 500 again? Offense stinks. Who's the quarterback? Baker Mayfield. Who didn't have a good year? Baker Mayfield. Now, there are reasons he didn't have a good year last year. There are reasons he didn't have a good year in 2019. But also, for any quarterback in the NFL, there's a reason why they didn't have a good year, right? There's always going to be a reason for whatever reason that is. And he just didn't. And you only get to fail expectations so many times before some people decide that they don't want to tie their boat to you. And that's pretty much what happened with Baker. He can give you great moments. If you understand what you know coming in with Baker Mayfield, you will be fine with him, right? The issue is when you start to believe that Baker is the guy that he shows 5 times a week rather than the inconsistency that he shows throughout the season, because that's where you get in trouble with him, is because he's just very inconsistent, right? I think he's more like Jay Cutler or more like Ryan Fitzpatrick, but like souped up. He's much better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? And that's why I think some of the rhetoric gets so crazy about him, because anything positive or negative you want to say about Baker Mayfield, there's proof to back up your argument, right? Because if you want to say Baker can be elite, he can do all, you could show me a cut of like 30 throws where he just throws it into windows that are unbelievable, on the run, like some crazy stuff here. But if you want to show me a cut up of him being bad, I mean, I've had to do film breakdowns on my channel of him, and they're just moments where you just scratch your head, like, what did you see, right? And that was a lot of what last year was. Some of that has to do with the injury, but a lot of that looked like he just couldn't see the field well for whatever reason, wasn't confident, didn't feel like he wanted to rip it. We know with Baker, when he doesn't have great offensive line play, he struggles. He struggles to get rid of the ball, right? He's more hesitant. You'll see the pump fake a lot. There are some issues there with him. He's not a perfect quarterback, but he is somebody who, if you get him in a good situation, he can look above average, because he is an above average quarterback. It's just how far above that line do you think he can get? That's where the debate starts. And you know how the internet goes. Nothing can't just be okay, right? It's always got to be either he's great or he's terrible.
Yeah, so I guess let me set the table on, because, we Panther fans, we've dealt with a lot of bad quarterback play over the past couple of years, going from Sam Darnold to Teddy Bridgewater to hurt Cam. And it hasn't been good the past, 4 or 5 years. And so when you talk about bringing an above average guy like Baker Mayfield in, we get excited.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, when it first happened, I didn't think it was gonna happen. First of all, I didn't think we were gonna trade for him. I thought we had drafted Matt Corral. I thought they were done with it. And so when it happened, I'm with you because you said it earlier. He's got to have a good offensive line. He's got to have a good run game. And without that, how good can he be? Because you come to Carolina, our offensive line is rebuilding, yes, but it's not the number one ranked offensive line that the Browns had, and we definitely don't have the run game. Although I love Christian McCaffrey, people think I hate Christian McCaffrey. I don't. I just think he's super overutilized.
Mm.
But we don't have that traditional power run game that the Browns have. So the ball's gonna be put in Baker Mayfield's hands in a different way, right? You're gonna have to find Christian McCaffrey or get rid of the ball quick. And can he do that? Maybe, but he's definitely not going to have that number one ranked offensive line, which is my biggest concern, especially going to the week one. I mean, my biggest concern, you got Myles Garrett going up against Icky, which I love Icky, great pick. But I mean, it could be a long day. I mean, he's going to take his lumps. I mean, it's going to happen. He's going to get beat a couple of times, maybe 3-4 times. It's going to happen. But that comes with he's a rookie. So, but Baker, yeah, we rocking with Baker. I mean, we gonna rock with him until he gives us a reason not to. That's how most Panther fans are gonna do. We are in a situation where our quarterback situation is effed up. And I think I watched your preview show about Baker, and you were saying that he may or may not get re-signed, and he's probably loosely tied to Matt Rule, which you're probably correct. I'm not the biggest Matt Rule fan, but if Baker can have a great season, I think they'll find a way to keep him around. It's going to be a lot of money. We got a decent amount of cap. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I think he can play himself into a contract extension potentially. But we'll see it. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, man,
that's kind of one of the concerns with Baker too in Cleveland was like, if we did keep him around another year, it's not out the realm that he does have a good year. And then it's like, man, we down in this contract situation where we're like every other year seems like it's on and off with him. And like you get into a 5-year deal with a dude like that, then things gets real shaky. And then he's not like the youngest young quarterback in the world. I think he's like 27, 28.
27.
Yeah. So he's, I don't want to say he's getting up there in age. Like quarterbacks play there forever, but it's like, it's just one of those things with Baker where it's like, there's so much unknown there for a dude that's that age that you start to wonder, is this inconsistency just who he is? Right. And that's that. And some quarterbacks are just like that, right? With good year, bad year, good games, bad games, and it just is what it is. But yeah, he's definitely interesting, and he is better than bad, right? Because the Browns have had bad, and that's why he is revered by a lot of people in Cleveland because he's better than what the Browns have had, most surely, especially if you're talking expansion eras. But the question with Baker, I feel like in Cleveland should have never been, is he better than what was there before? It should be, is he good enough to do what you want to do with?
And see, that's a great perspective to have, right? Because people get stuck with or being okay with mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Matt Rule essentially said that. As soon as he got here, we don't need a quarterback to be the star. We don't need him to be a leader. He said that. We don't need our quarterback. He told Sam Darnold, we don't need you to be a leader. Right. So he said that. And so he's cool with these average quarterbacks coming out here and being, not bad, like you said, which is a great way to put it. But that's, how far are you going to go in this league? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's a real interesting question there when it comes to how Matt Rule is handling that one. That's what I was like, oh wow.
That's a whole nother, bro. I'm not the biggest fan of dude, but he's got 7-year contract. It kind of is what it is. Stuck with him unless he comes out with about 5 wins. He'll be back next year. He's got a long leash. But anyway, man, talk to me about this Browns defense, bro. Like everything kind of hinges on that defense. Talk to me about what's going on there. You coming into another year, y'all gonna be improved, kind of stay the same. I mean, y'all aren't that good, but what's the outlook on this defense?
You look at the last 6 games of last year. I think that's really when this defense came together, started to like really mesh well, and really was able to get off the field on third down. I think they've made some significant improvements since then, and that was like they got 4 interceptions from Lamar Jackson. Kind of shut him down before he got injured in that second game. And then when it came to the game against Green Bay, I mean, you want to talk about all-time frustrating Baker Mayfield performances. This was one of them, right? Where the defense was just there were three interceptions in the first half. Defense, I think, forced all of those to field goals or less. Kept getting Aaron Rodgers off the field, and Baker was either what drive he's good, okay, he looks all right. What drive? Just throws a questionable interception. Like, it was just one of those games where it was very winnable, but the quarterback play just wasn't up to par. But the defense definitely did their part. And that was the kind of theme throughout the last half of the season, was the defense did their part. Now we're coming back. And I think this secondary is really the marquee part. Obviously, when you have Myles Garrett on your team, that's going to be what everybody circles, because Myles Garrett, he's incredible. He's a very, very good football player. But I think the strength of this defense is that secondary. You look at Denzel Ward, who's one of the best corners in football. Greg Newsome, who was really good last year, I think he's had an excellent camp. I think he's ready to be closer to that level of a Denzel Ward than what he was last year, because he's just had an excellent camp so far. Then you look at the backup guys, and this is where the depth really shows. AJ Green III, he's not a guy most people would know, but he's been pretty solid for the Browns. Greedy Williams, former second-round pick, he's good. He can't be left in zone a ton because he falls asleep sometimes at the wheel. But he's like the fourth corner. And then MJ Emerson, who might actually play over him, our third round pick this year from Mississippi State, he's been excellent. He's not the fastest. He's kind of like Richard Sherman. I don't want to say he's Richard Sherman, but he has some of the similar tall corner flaws, right? Where the hips are a little bit slow, can't really make up for lost ground that well. Yeah. But if you keep him underneath, Browns play a lot of quarters, like cover three. You keep him underneath, he's going to be pretty good for you. So they go 5 deep in that corner room. And I think all of them are going to play and contribute. And then the safeties, John Johnson, Grant Delpit, I've always said he's the secret weapon there. If he is who people thought he would be coming out of LSU in 2019, this defense, the ceiling is roof, right? Like this is going to be incredible. But we have to see what happens with him. If not, there's going to be a lot of Ronnie Harrison rotating in with John Johnson. And then JOK, I mean, I don't know how much y'all are on to JOK, but we're very excited at JOK Cleveland.
Yeah, I cover the draft, so I'm a huge fan. Like a lot of the guys you mentioned are guys that, I mean, Grant Delpit, Newsome, all these guys, Greedy Williams, these are all guys that I've covered in the draft, and I love them. And then JOK, I mean, he was great in college. I mean, he's awesome. He's awesome, and he's got a very similar play to our very own Jeremy Chin. Very similar guy. So, yeah, I mean, y'all defense is legit. It's going to be very interesting to see. Now, I want you to reiterate, because I watched your video again, and you talked about how, you know, Baker, because he knows the defense, is at an advantage or disadvantage? Because I like your output on that, or your thought process on that.
Yeah, because like, a lot has been brought up. He knows the defense, and I'm just sitting here like, most defenses in the NFL aren't that different from each other, right? Like the same basic concepts. And also, when we bring up this question of like how well Baker knows the defense, there needs to be another question that's brought up of like, how well does the team know Baker, right? Exactly. Because Baker's still learning a new offense, right? And that's going to take a couple of weeks of game reps to really get comfortable and build new habits in. Until then, when you're pressed in a situation, if he's pressured, he's going to do what he's always done. And the Browns know those tendencies better than anybody else because they practice against those tendencies. Also, you know, the Browns secondary, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with it, but the secondary, if you follow everything that happened with the drama at the end of last year after they cut Odell, they seem to be the most bothered with what happened with Baker Mayfield more than anybody. But yeah, it's really the defensive thing. If he knows the defense well, yeah, he does. He knows what the Browns defense is going to do. But I think most people around the league know that the Browns are going to drop into a lot of cover three, sometimes some quarters. They're going to run a lot of nickel 4-2-5, and they're going to just run some base sets out there. That's the whole league knows the Browns are going to do that. For Baker, I guess the advantage would be he knows stuff about the offense that most people don't. But even then, the Browns run a Shanahan style offense. Not a lot of like trickery in that, that's not unknown. So the question about whether Baker knowing the offense is an advantage, I look at it a different way. Like, is this necessarily a good thing that this matchup has been hyped up for Baker Mayfield? Because he's kind of put in a position to where this is not a great matchup for him. If you just look at, if this weren't like the Browns and we weren't hyping it up because it was his former team, we would look at this a little bit differently, because offensive line is going to be in a tough situation for the Carolina Panthers. Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney coming to town, and then you have at best Myles Garrett on, a six pick in the draft, who he's going to probably be good down the line, but you can be really good down the line and you're playing Myles Garrett. Like, there's some stuff you're going to learn in real time, right? Like Myles Garrett, there's no prepping for Myles Garrett in practice. So that's going to happen, right? Myles is presumably going to be able to get pressure. And then he's going to be throwing into a DB heavy back end that's filled with a bunch of really skilled guys that knows, hey, when Baker gets flushed out, he really likes to go to his Z receiver and he wants that Z receiver to go on out. Like, they know these things and they can hop on these things a little bit better. So I would say this: if Baker looks terrible, Carolina Panther fans, this is not the game to crucify him for. I think
they'll do it too.
Yeah,
we're quick to jump off the bandwagon, bro. We've seen it enough. We've seen a lot of mediocrity to know.
And it's like, the reason I feel like part of that's going to happen is because so many people put stock into this game, because it's like, oh, it's the revenge game, Baker Mayfield revenge games. And I've seen it go two types of ways with him, where he has these revenge games and he's amazing. And he has these revenge games and you're like, I wish you were less mad, because now we're throwing the ball 45 times, right? And that as much as I did not want him to continue to be quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, I don't want to see his career end early and like stuff like that. If you have like a terrible game against your team and then people just turn against you, you start to get booed. I don't think that's super likely in Carolina, but that stuff can like lead to him, being a backup sooner than he should be or something like that. But yeah, it's one of those weird situations to where this is really a hyped up matchup for him. And even if the Panthers win this game, which is definitely possible, for sure, I don't think it's going to be off the back of a 300-yard, 3-touchdown Baker Mayfield performance. Yeah. It could be ugly how they get out of there. And I don't know. I feel like he's kind of being set up in a bad way, just because people aren't happy with the Cleveland Browns right now for obvious reasons. And they want that victory. They want that narrative. And I just don't know if this is the right narrative for him right now. Like, this much attention on this game, it might not end up looking good for him, because this is a bad matchup when it just comes to the X's and O's. When you add in the fact that they know him, like they've had him, know every flaw for like the last 2 years, and they probably know him better than Matt Rule at this point knows Baker Mayfield. That's a problem, right? And I'm interested to see how that's going to play itself out in the football field.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. It's going to be a tough matchup. Just really quick, I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup on the outside. When you talk about the receivers versus y'all DBs, I mean, we got one of the most slept on receivers in the game with DJ Moore. He's a beast. I mean, people sleep on him constantly, man. And I think he could give some problems. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and drop 150 or nothing like that, but I think it could be a little bit problematic. I think that's going to be something to watch. DJ Moore getting the ball quick out in space is definitely going to be a problem. Then Robbie Anderson stretching the field. It could get very interesting both ways. When you talk about y'all secondary versus our receivers, Chenault, we don't know what's going to be with him. And then you got Shaw Smith is a young kid coming off out of South Carolina last year, who was very good on third downs, getting the football at the line of scrimmage. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not gonna say Baker's going to throw 300 and light y'all up. I'm not saying that by any means, but I think it's going to be a bit tougher than y'all might be expecting when it comes to our receivers. I think it's going to be a good matchup for sure. Now let's quickly. Oh, go ahead. My fault. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I was going to say, I was about to agree with you. Like, yeah, these are good wide receivers. It's going to be an interesting matchup for week 1.
Yeah. So just let's flip it to y'all offense. You got Jacoby at quarterback. Very, very, very good offensive line. Very good run game. I mean, what's the game plan looking like? Or how y'all gonna? Because our defense is no slouch at all. Like, I would not. We one of those teams that fly on the radar. People don't really know what we have personnel wise. But you talked about your secondary, bro. we got a couple of dogs in our secondary too that I like a lot. When we talk about J.C. Horn, C.J. Henderson, a bunch of young ballers. Okay, so I think it could be tough for y'all side too. So
I
what's
love
your thoughts
J.C.
on that?
Horn coming out of college. He's excellent. But yeah, so offensively, I'm under no delusion that like Jacoby Brissett's gonna come in there and look like a franchise quarterback. He's gonna look like Jacoby Brissett. I feel like people are a bit low on what Jacoby Brissett looks like. Like people act like he's like worse than starting like right now Joe Flacco. Like I think Jacoby's a little bit better than what people give him credit for. That does not mean I think he's great, right? I think the plan with Jacoby is like, hey, man, you want to get out of every game under 30 passing attempts. You don't want to ever go above 30 because that means you in a lot of 3rd and 7, you in a lot of 3rd and 10, you in a lot of bad down and distance situations, and you're asking Jacoby to throw you out of it. That's not going to win you games. This team has to win games really ugly. Like I call this the early 2000s offense. Like, you know, they're going to come in there with the snap music and they're going to be doing that thing because it's not an offense that's going to be able to throw the ball like today's offense. They're going to have to run the ball. It's going to be Nick Chubb. It's going to be Kareem Hunt. It's going to be a lot of tight end, tunnel screens and stuff like that. They're going to have to dig it out dirty like that because Jacoby has limitations. But the one thing they feel like Jacoby Brissett does do that Baker Mayfield necessarily didn't, and again, Baker's a more talented, I would say definitely a better quarterback than Jacoby. But the issue with Baker is when it gets bad with Baker, he does things that did not make the defense's life easier. With Jacoby, he does not get sacked a lot. He does not get put behind the sticks a ton. He does not turn the ball over a ton. So even if he's not playing great, you know that you're not going to make the defense's life much harder than what it has to be, right? You're not giving up a lot of field goal possessions based on where you lost the ball because you fumbled the ball on the opening possession or threw an interception or something like that. So there is that with Jacoby, right? They feel more confident in his ability to game manage, but this is going to be, the Browns are going to be playing a lot of field position, a lot of punting the ball to get them behind the sticks and playing the long game. I don't expect this team to score over 20 points consistently throughout the first 11 weeks. After that, who knows? But it's going to be a grinded out type of team. If this defense is only good, they're in trouble for that first 11 weeks. If this defense is great, they're going to be fine. But that's the real question, right? They're not going to be able to get those crazy performances from the quarterback position. They're going to have to rely on a lot of grinded out football and playing just real slow battle football. I mean, in Ohio, we call it trestle ball because it's how Jim Tressel used to run his offenses back at Ohio State, like in the early 2000s. But that's pretty much what it's going to have to be. They're going to have to minimize Jacoby Brissett's effect on this game. If he gets past 30 passing attempts, you're in trouble. You know, not saying you can't win it if he gets past it, but it's not optimal, right? Yeah. And that's the kind of situation you're in. You traded for this situation because you feel like there's a reward at the end of this, but that's the situation you're in. And the Browns have to feel confident that this defense is going to be good enough to carry them to at least 5 or 6 wins during that 11-game stretch if they want to keep this season alive.
Yeah, and I think the biggest concern is like it's y'all strength versus our weakness, right? Defensively, the biggest weakness on our side, on the defense side of football for us, is stopping the run. So, I mean, we've made some strides to try to fix it. We brought in Matt Ioannidis. We brought in, we just picked up my man Henderson from the Patriots. Is a kind of rotational guy, big guy that can stop the run. But yeah, I'm not all sold that we'll be able to even slow down Chubb. I haven't seen enough. Maybe it happens. Maybe Chubb and Hunt, but I don't know. I don't see it personally. I think if you guys, get the ball going on the ground, it's going to be a long day for the Carolina Panthers, and I think that could essentially, seal the victory for the Browns. If we can't stop the run, it's going to be a problem because essentially you playing into your strength. So we got to slow y'all down somewhere. So let me flip that. Because you said your defense is great. What's your biggest concern on defense, if there is one?
The interior of the defensive line is not great, right? I mean, you're talking about Jordan Elliott and Taven Bryant, 2 guys who nobody's ever heard of, and 2 unknowns at that position, right? Now, Jordan Elliott's had a good preseason. He's somebody who's been terrible the last 2 years. He was a 3rd-round pick, I believe, in 2020. He just hasn't been good. Came back, gained like 20 pounds. Looks a lot better at that weight. Has been playing a lot better at that weight. But I still don't trust it yet with Jordan. I feel good about his work, as good as he has put in work throughout his career, but I still can't trust it. Taven Bryan, I mean, like he's Taven Bryan at this point. Like the real gamble that the Browns are doing with the interior of the defensive line is saying, hey, are you going to run the ball against us? And 2, are you okay with running that ball towards Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, right? Those are the deterrents for trying to attack that middle, plus JOK roaming over the top. If they feel like that's enough to deter teams from just spamming that run up the middle, they'll be all right. And if that ultimately is enough to stop that, then they'll be all right. But that's a concern there, that interior of the defense. And I worry about defensive line depth, right? Because, I mean, this is an obvious statement, but it's still a true statement. If Myles Garrett goes down, knock on wood, hope it doesn't happen.
Right.
Dang, I don't know what they do on the defensive line at that point, right? Because this whole thing is predicated on, hey, we can get away with this because we have Myles Garrett, right? And when you have that player, it can be a trap, right? When the Panthers had like prime Cam Newton, you got away with a lot because you had Cam, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the Ravens, right? They get away with so much because they have Lamar Jackson, right? And Lamar makes up for so many holes on that team. Myles Garrett makes up for a lot of holes on that defensive line in that front 7, just by virtue of being Myles, because he's not one player. You put like 2 guys, the Baltimore Ravens put like 3 guys on him almost every play. Like, he takes so much attention that even if he's not getting to the backfield consistently, he's having a tremendous impact on the game merely by existing. So that is a huge factor of it. I mean, this defense looks completely different whenever Myles Garrett's not on the field. And he's not going to be on the field the whole game. He takes breaks throughout the game. So how are they going to hold up when Myles Garrett is not going to be out there, right? Are they going to be able to keep Christian McCaffrey contained? Are they going to be able to get to Baker Mayfield without Myles Garrett in the game for those 2 or 3 drives? Is that when Carolina's going to strike and score on you? You got to factor in for these things. What are you going to do to kind of manufacture pressure? And is that going to open up wide receivers when you do that? Because you have to do something because Myles is not out there. But that's the biggest thing, right? The defensive line depth. I mean, even if Jadeveon Clowney goes down, and that's not like a rare thing that does not ever happen, right? Jadeveon Clowney it's rare that he doesn't get injured. If he goes down, you got Alex Wright, but he's a rookie. I just don't feel great about that situation, right? It's a lot is predicated on the health of those 2 players on the defensive line. If they stay healthy, I don't think there's a problem, because teams aren't going to be eager to just run the ball and let Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney be in the game. But if they're not there, you have a massive problem if one of them are not there, because then you can just spam on one side and just keep Myles out of it that way, because if Jadeveon's not there on the other side, there's no way you'd like run stuff towards Myles still. That would be ridiculous unless you think you got the best left tackle in the world. But yeah, that's just the issue that the Browns defensive line has, is I don't think there's great depth at any of those positions, but you have your greatest player at that position. So you're fine, but you better hope he's all right the whole year.
All right, bro. So that's great. That's a great observation. But before we get you out of here, any predictions? Or do you do predictions first of all? Because a lot of people don't do them. Do you do predictions?
Begrudgingly, I do them. It's look, I've had bad luck with predictions in the past. I've had some bad takes because of prediction. I've been doing this for 4 years now. I know the danger of a prediction, but I understand this is entertainment, so we got to do them still.
Give me one for the game. Give me a week 1 prediction, score prediction. Who you think walks away with the W?
I think the Browns win this one. And I think the Browns probably win this by like 10 points. So I would go 21-10. I would say 21-10 seems like a fair score for this. I think if this goes how I think it's going to go, I think probably Baker good for about 230. I think a touchdown, an interception, and he probably takes like 3-4 sacks in this one. And I think that ultimately, like, I don't know if he like turns the ball over more than that. Obviously, if he turns the ball over more than once, like that's a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Because,
over. Yeah.
yeah. But I think he's gonna. I think Baker probably looks good in the first half of this, and then things kind of change up in the second half.
Yeah, that would mirror exactly what we did last year. That's our we have, because obviously I have Matt Rule. He doesn't know how to adjust, and so we're great. Which is essentially a microcosm of our season last year. We were great in the beginning of the season, went 3-0, looked great in the first half of games. We get up on people real quick, but then that second half comes around, no adjustments are made. The NFL coaches start to do NFL coach things and adjust, and then we're in trouble. So I think you kind of hit. That's a microcosm of the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, it's interesting, those two together.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see how that goes now. But yeah, I think that's ultimately how it goes down. There is a outside shot that, like, maybe the Browns defense gets caught sleeping. Like sometimes they do, right? And DJ Moore has a good game, or maybe it's Christian McCaffrey that has like a really good game, or it might be Baker Mayfield. But I think it's more likely, like, if I'm the Browns, I'm focusing more on DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, respectfully, than Baker Mayfield, just because I know those two dudes are like legit NFL dudes. Like they're gonna be balling. Like they're good. I don't know how much Christian's gonna play. Like, has he played at all in preseason? I understand you wouldn't play him.
Yeah. He hasn't played any preseason. There's talk of him getting, not necessarily snap count. He'll be out there, but will he touch the ball as much as he usually does? That's the question. They're trying to pull back some of those touches to kind of save them throughout the 17-week season. So we'll see. Your guess is as good as mine on how many. I think once the rubber hits the road, man, you're gonna see old Christian McCaffrey usage. Once we start getting down, they're gonna start panicking, and he's gonna touch the rock every possession essentially. And
let you get to 3rd and 10. He's gonna be running the angle routes, and then it's gonna be back to normal. Every football coach will be like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna keep him on the snap count." They tried to do that with Miles once, right? Because Miles was coming back from injury. You need to go on the snap count, and then they got down by 10. And then Miles was there every play. Snap count went away.
That's exactly what's going to happen with CMC, man. They talk a good game, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But just for my prediction, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna flip it. I think you were. I'm gonna go 21-17 Panthers. I do think it's gonna be close. But I think home crowd, people are excited to see Baker, bro. Like, you don't understand. We haven't had a quarterback here since prime Cam. And it's been several years, and people are excited that we have a not bad, in the words of you, a not bad quarterback. And so people are excited for it. And so I think we'll take it away. And I think I'm going to go 21-17 Carolina Panthers.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to definitely be an interesting game.
It will be. That being said, we're going to close this out, man. Quincy, first of all, thank you for coming in. Where can the people find you, bro?
YouTube.com/Quincy Carrier. If you don't feel like going up to your address bar, because I'm understanding that the young people don't do that anymore, just go in your search bar on YouTube, put in Quincy Carrier, spelled just like how you see it on the screen. My videos will pop up. I do videos about the Browns mostly, but I also do stuff about the whole AFC North. And since the Panthers, y'all playing the AFC North this year, right? So you might want to get up on that. Might want to get up on the Ravens, the Steelers, and what the Bengals are doing, because those are also some good, interesting. Well, everybody but the Steelers are good and interesting. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot of intriguing things going on there. So if you want to check it out, check it out. I know some of y'all gonna be there when I'm streaming this game if the Panthers go up by 14, because I know how y'all get down. I know how opposing NFL fans get down. The stream numbers jump by like 200 every time the Browns are down by 14. So I'm pretty sure I'll see some of you there if this gets bad for the Browns. Oh, and it's the Baker game. Yeah. I'll see y'all there. So that's where you can find me. I'm sure if y'all feel the need, y'all will find me.
All right, man. Once again, Quincy, thank you for coming in. Rashad, One Having a Panthers podcast. We up out of here.